Welcome to another episode of Volvo Rescue. I'm David, and thank you to everybody who's donated to our fundraiser for the slow-rolling nonprofit Volvo organization, which supports the community and the youth with scholarship programs. We're going to give you an update on the fundraiser and how that's going right now. I've set a goal that by next Sunday we will have reached $2,000. That is the minimum threshold for one scholarship, as well as 30% of our goal. Our mascot is ready. Little Ivy Jr. is in place and is ready to track the results of our fundraiser. Let's see how we're doing. $75% to $2,000. So we are actually really close, just right around the corner. And this is a total of 25% of our total fundraiser. We'll check back in a few days. In the meantime, enjoy this episode of 164 Rescue.
How nice is it to see the car parked the other way finally? Boy. Woo! All right, it's a good way to start the day. We got to do taillights, rear bumper, front fog lights, the wiring for the fogs, the wiring for the overdrive. I saw that FedEx was here. Are my rear shocks here finally? Also, if you don't want to weld an O2 bung, you can get one of these bolt-on styles. You just gotta put a hole in your exhaust and it comes with a gasket. You know what I heard? I heard thunder, but it was pretty sunny a minute ago. So what's going on? Oh, she's rolling through. Look how dark that is. It's only 11:30. This doesn't look like shocks to me.
Hey, we gotta talk taillights real quick and wattages. So here, you can look at that in the meantime. Top bulb is, oh, look at that. The conversion's right there on the metal. Top is turn signal. Turn signal, reverse, brake, indicator lamp, or parking light, as we call them here in the States. So this top one, it says on the thing, 32 candle power, 21 watts. BP will sell you a bulb that is 25 watts. I think that's 277721, the part number. And then the next one down needs to be 15 watts, and it says 32 candle power, 15 watts. Interesting, both 32 candle power, but 2115. Okay, 32 candle power, 21 watt, which is identical to number 1, which is the same 25 watt equivalent that VP will sell you, which is I think an 1156 bulb. That's 25 watts, single filament. And the very bottom one needs to be 5 watt only. So don't overdo it with this one or you will melt your bottom lens. It's not uncommon to see this distorted. This is distorted because somebody put a larger bulb probably. The sockets are the same size, that's what's misleading. The larger bulb will melt right into it. Well, because they're listed here, I thought it was gonna be more complicated, but that was pretty easy. About 6 hours of work, but hey, check it out. Oh, why is there still some wax in there? It's hard to get that out, especially because the paint's flaky and I don't want to get it too hard, but everything is attached the way it should be originally. There's nothing siliconed or glued or extra screwed in. It's all just the way it should be. And this closes nicely. Very nicely. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the front now. Well, I finally got the fog lights to work with the low beams because they were working with the high beam. And the reason for that is this diagram is not correct. Got it finally by moving the pin from 56A over to the other side, which if you look at the relay, the easy way to tell is that there's the two red wires. That's the output for the high beam. And then there's the gray wire here, which is the low beam or the dipped beams. And that's where I connected this. So when the low beam is on, it's triggering the circuit to activate the fog lamp. The diagram here wants you to connect to 56A. And 56A is the red wires, which is the high beam, which is why it was only energizing with the high beam on. Okie dokie. Whatever. I got that taken care of, so it's late, and I've only got one bulb working, and it's sticking out kind of funky because it needs some TLC on the broken bracket, but everything's looking pretty good. Spent a day on just wiring and stuff. You want to see the back? Oh, she's complete. So much shiny. Very nice. Okay. By the way, do we have a dimmer here? And these seem to work. That's good. High beams are on. Low beams. Let's switch the fog. So today I did the relay wiring for the fog light. I got the fog lights installed. I got the bumper put in. And as of a little bit ago, we have Overdrive. There's no indicator light right now, and the stock is not the correct one because I'm just using, this is actually the P1800 Overdrive Switch, and I use it on the Amazons because it fits nicely into the dash, but it's not the right one here. But I put the hole in the correct place so that when I can get the right bracket and the right switch, I'll have it ready to go and I don't have to cut extra holes. Getting the oxygen sensor calibrated. I don't remember having to do this with my AEM wideband, but the Innovate sure does. So it says apply power with it disconnected, and then this will go to an E2 and leave that for 30 seconds. So attach the oxygen sensor, and now with the O2 sensor just hanging and having free air, I'm going to reconnect it here. Who knows why this connector is so beefy. And then it will go into cal for calibration after the E2 message. Cool, not doing that means that there's no sensor connected. Let's try connect this part here as well. And voila. So let's turn this on and it should go into the heater circuit. Heating. After 30 to 60 seconds, the display will switch from this to calibrate, indicating the sensor is being calibrated. A few seconds later, the MTX will display the air-fuel ratio. Because the gauge is sitting in free air, just hanging out there, it's going to be reading pretty high, about 22.4. Here's the funny thing, they want you to do this on a normally aspirated daily driver every 3 months or 20,000 miles, or at least once a year. Okay, we're reading and we're calibrated. Shut this down, plug the sensor in, start the engine, go for a drive, see how our AFRs are doing.
Satisfy my appetite with something spectacular. Check your vernacular, and then I get back to ya with diamond like precision, insatiable as
The good news is we were not running lean. She's running too rich. She's at like 9.6 on the AFRs. So I'm glad I got that gauge hooked up. Seems to run quite nicely right now. Oh wow, the fan looks so cool. Slowed down on the camera view. But she's spinning fast for me. Quite happy with it. Maybe once it warms up, the AFRs will heat her out a little bit, but right
No, 9495 is too high. Idle speed is good, all the electrics work. Then we can go for a drive, check out. Oh, it's only going down. Thanks. Let me do a little bit of research on how to tune these carbs with the jetting tools that I have, and hopefully we can get it to a more reasonable amount on the mixture there. The last thing I just did was trim the rubber here, so I actually feel quite accomplished. She's getting dusty though. I think it's almost safe to remove my paper towels, but just a little bit longer, okay? There's a couple oil drips on the floor, and I want to find out where they're coming from. Yay! We're doing it. Oh, one more thing. Found out what this red wire here was. Let me show you. You're coming. Soon, your turn will come. Oh. This is a noise suppressant capacitor. The way you can test these is hook an ohm meter to them, and the resistance should start low and then go out to infinite, and that's exactly how that happened. So this one's working. These, thank you to my model here, the capacitor is a noise suppressor for the radio, of all things. So it goes here, and then the wire attaches to the positive side of the coil. I'm gonna hook mine up because I've got a 69, and it wasn't until I think 1972 where these became obsolete for radio purposes. I think radio manufacturers got their own noise suppressants. But I know even the 240 has a noise suppressant capacitor in it. I'm not planning on using the radio, but I do want it to work. If this belongs here, it's going here.
I need to adjust the Stromberg carburetors, but my tool isn't fitting in the top, so I'm going to have to investigate a little further. It's not fitting into both cars, actually. I'm going to pull the dash pots, and we'll have a look. But first, I just want to go for a little drive around the block. You know, every time there's... I was hoping to drop it off at a shop today, have them look into the rear axle noise, but oh well. I've got an impromptu dash pad here made from the spare carpet. I'm actually going to try to cut a better shape to size because I like the texture of it, is, you know, going with this whole 70s aesthetic. I also really just want to protect the dashboard from cracking, since that's an unusual find I've got here, and I want to preserve my car. Running rich. So we were talking about pedals in an earlier video. My feet are wide, and actually shoes torn because they're so wide. But I've actually got adequate spacing of the pedals here. Funny thing is, this was bent on both cars, and it's not supposed to be bent. You can see the crease in the camera, but with my eye, I can't see it. Still warming up. Jeez Louise, dude, hurry up. We're leaving you behind here. It's a hot day. What do you need to heat up? All right, now she's in the low 9s. Oh, I'll just have to see what happens here. Well, I know what'll happen. It'll start fouling the plugs. Boy, this gauge is all over the place. Oh, wait a second. Now it's reading 16. Now it's reading lean because we've shut the throttle. Should be reading rich. I don't know if I like this O2 sensor very much. Maybe it's already melted.
Hey, car, and you're walking. Oh, yes, son, I'm talking to you.
Mild acceleration, 10.4, 9.8. Still 10.3. 13. Come on. 22. Come on. What are you doing? Either our mixture is really fluctuating heavily, or this sensor is just garbage. All right, we're back in the garage here. I'll see if I can get some adjustments made. Here's why this tool doesn't work. There's no Allen key down below. What I'm hoping to accomplish actually is to get that jet, which sits down below the surface. I need it to be kind of higher up, more flat, because she's running too rich. Looks like we gotta do it from the bottom. The bottom ones normally would have an adjuster like the SU carbs, but I think if I pull the plug, I'll have to drain some gas, and then we'll have to see what's going on underneath.
So this is what I've found about the Stromberg carburetors. There's a variety of different Strombergs, and not all of them are built the same. Volvo, unfortunately, has one that is a non-adjustable jet and a non-adjustable needle. These things are people referring to them as emissions carbs, which is why they have so many things like air bypass valve, etc. And an SU carb is so much simpler and adjustable. Early Strombergs have an adjustment at the bottom of the thing where you can take the cap, or it's where the cap is on mine for the float chamber, but there'd be a brass plug and you could just screw it up just like the SUs, and that moves the jet tube up and down. The needle itself are either adjustments from the side or an adjustment from the top. As we just saw a minute ago, there's no way I can get this tool to adjust from the top because there's no Allen key in there for this needle to change. And that's because on this carburetor, the CD2SE, not the CD2 or the CD2S, the SE carbs that the Volvos were using have a tool, special tool that screws in from the bottom and it adjusts the jet, and then they have a special tool that goes in from the top and it presses the jet as well. So there's two tools that kind of, I don't know, help you find the spot for the jet. That's what I read, and I don't have either of those, nor do I have a replacement jet. One person on Brickboard was saying that the jets tend to wear on these carbs every 30,000 miles. And that's too bad if that's the case, because that's not a lot of life for these carbs. Thankfully, it's running rich, it's not running lean, so that's good at least. Here's what I'm going to try. The needle is already flat with the top of my piston, so I'm not going to upset this balance. But what I will try first is I'll take the dash pots out of Amy and I'll put them in Ivy, and we'll see how it runs. If it runs any better, like between 12 to 13 on the air-fuel ratio at idle, I'm quite happy with that. There's other adjustments I have to make. I need to adjust my timing with the timing light. I need to adjust idle speed, and I think idle mixture. There's a screw for that, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't want to skip any steps, which is why I should start with the proper adjustment first on those before moving on to other things. Another note is this diaphragm does not look like it's been replaced. This diaphragm looks old. I've got these ones in a box, and that tells me that I didn't replace these when I pulled the carbs apart in January. I just put them back in since I'm working to get the car back together. So these diaphragms are probably quite old as well, and I don't know how much that affects mixture because it does react to the airflow and the volume of air going in, but honestly it was enough to get a driver on the block, so that's good. I'll just start by doing baseline adjustments and then working my way to swapping these from Amy's. Where the jet is removable, inspect for wear. Wear inside the jet may well accompany wear on the needle. If the jet is worn, replace it. Where the jet is pressed into the main body, it can be examined from above. Replacement, if worn, is a matter for the specialist. Sad. Here's some of the checks I can do in the meantime. Our float, A and B, right there is the measurement. And then this fella here, this is the free play at the end of the damper piston, 0.04 to 0.07 inches, 1.1 to 1.9 millimeters. The green book here is talking about using transmission fluid type A for the damper piston, and that should be filled to about 1/4 inch from the upper edge. Remember that I said 1.1 to 1.9 millimeters? Well, we have ourselves an out of clearance specification. Is anything gonna work here? The right is what I pulled out of Ivy. On the left is what's from Amy. This is 0.8 millimeters, and it will not even fit inside of the one from Ivy. And then Amy's has a little bit of wiggle room, and then we'll go up to the extreme end. This is 1.5, and it's within spec. So I know which one I'll be using. One more thing worth discussing here. Spring lengths. The damper spring on this side is from Amy, and this is Ivy's. And it looks like the one with the higher mileage cars just got a better spring in it. Maybe it was refurbed at one point, or just sat around less? I don't know. But the stiffer the spring, in theory, the better throttle response you'll have. There are 3-ish different springs that I could find online that you could put in here with varying thicknesses, but really the throttle richness when you're accelerating is controlled by the oil that you put in the damper a lot more than the spring. But the fact that this one's got just, I don't know, 2 coils more life in it just makes me feel that much better. On the other one, they're identical, but who knows? So that just meant we have 1 sagging spring. I said I would do it the right way with the ignition timing and baseline settings and all that. I'm just gonna stick the dampers in and see how it does. Do you see the different thicknesses of these needles?
The one on the right is thicker. Do you see the differences in the pliability of the rubber? The one on the right is from Amy with a new rubber and a thicker needle. The left is what I've got here up at 5,000 feet elevation. So I don't know, maybe this will run better for sea level too. Who knows how much air density has a part to play in all this? Because so much of the volume of air is just metered through the diaphragm function of this carburetor, which is why SUs are popular with elevation changes and Webers need to be rejetted all the time. No doubt you've all seen people spill ATF when they overfill those dash pots. This is the best way to do it. Let's see how she runs right now. All the adjustment screws are at their regular settings, but thicker needles, better springs, better diaphragms. Let's just see how she does real quick. And then I'll get to baseline settings. We all have our addictions. Mine just happen to be safety glasses and pamplemousse. Passion fruit, we'll have to do. Now she should balance that can once everything's dialed in, but we'll wait a few days. Well, let's see if that tachometer decides to work or not. Maybe it doesn't like having this on. This is the trouble with having things like a tachometer and an air fuel gauge, is you start becoming burdened with knowledge. But with the value of this investment, it's so worth protecting that engine. So I want to know that everything's doing just fine. I may install this tachometer. I may go with a Volvo unit that I have, but that's back in my apartment in LA. You know, the place where I don't have a garage to work, so we'll see. The adjustment on the throttle shafts that we're really hoping is right and sensitive is the gap from this to that. And over here you see it as well. You see them kind of wiggle in a little bit and then they start to open. It's just how they're operating. So that's it. Air fuel mixture, when it's working, that gauge keeps giving me an error code. I'm gonna find out what's going on. But it's sitting right about 10, which is better. Let's put the idle up a little bit. I'm gonna go another half a turn. Really? As soon as I hook you up, it doesn't want to work. So she doesn't like having anything added to her ignition system. I get it. Really blow-by gases. You're at 5.5 towards 6, and you're at 7. That's enough tuning for today. I just want to cover one thing real quick. The resistor, the way that these work, it's supposed to be 0.9 ohms. That's the part number rating. So the cold start requires a hotter spark, so it's a low resistance. And then as the engine starts getting up to temperature, so does that resistor. And as the resistor heats up, resistance increases, and then it cools down the spark initially, or essentially, to the system. And the less spark is needed at temperature, so you're not constantly shooting hot, and it helps the coil stay within its operable temperature range and all that stuff. This coil has a label on it that says requires resistor, so they know what they're doing. I'm gonna go for a drive after dinner. We're gonna have a nice sunset. This is perfect weather for driving, so I'm actually gonna go out in a few minutes here and take it for a spin.
notice a few things are different about this car today. That's right, I added mirrors. Man, I should have brought my hubcaps. Man, I should have put my door trim on. Man, I should have put a back seat in. Man, I should have gone taller in the rear. But you know what? None of that really matters right now, does it? Just enjoying the ride, baby girl. Woo-hoo! Cosmetically, just a little bit shinier than it was in January. Mechanically, she's ready. So I'm taking the back streets, unplugged the speedo because it was noisy. Woo! And she's performing quite well. This E8 error code it's overheating is what's going on. So I'm gonna buy a spacer. Maybe that'll help a little bit because I don't want to put another hole in my pipe. Here. Oh, I love having power steering in a 60s car. That's real nice. Can't wait till I get AC. That'll be even nicer. Now, you'll notice my amp light stayed on. It could be an issue with the diodes, or it could just be a function of the distance the voltage should travel, blah, 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 the voltage regulator, blah, blah, blah. All kinds of other little things just working together to change the voltage across the lamp. We've been over this. Oh, no, Lee. Here I thought we was going to get rain. Well, something's dripping pretty good down here. What do we got? Spray of oil. Who did it? Which one of you was it? So for the first 1,000 miles or so, new engines and new cars and the paint and all the chemicals and everything getting hot and gross. It smells awful. Plugs look good. A lot of oil coming out the back of that gearbox. Yep. I have to do that seal sometime. What else? How's the back of our head? Not too bad. Okay, let's go get some stuff. Okay, H1. The weirdest bulb nobody uses anymore. Ah. Yikes. Maybe I could just buy a single one? Weird, isn't it? Overdrive works, baby. Oh, we just hit rain. I have no wiper arms on this car at this point, but enjoy the lightning storm. Cue on cue. Heckin' grill. We're cruising 50 miles an hour. It's the fastest I've ever driven this car. We did it, ladies and gentlefish. We did it. First drive was a success. Let's park her in the garage. Oof, hate that new smell though. I don't know how to describe it. It's like if hot paint were green food. I can't think of a better first drive. That was really good. I mean, it's the third drive, but just super pleased with it. Performing, behaving well, and driving in and out of the garage like it's a normal daily driving car. I mean, I built this thing in this spot, and now it gets to commute in and out of it. I love that.
And I do love me some rain.